네, 최근에 극장에서 더 폴이라는 영화를 보시고 나서 무척이나 감탄하고 사랑하시게 된 분들 정말 많을 것 같습니다. 지금 재개봉되어서 오히려 이 영화가 오래전에 처음 개봉했을 때보다 훨씬 더 큰 선풍을 일으키고 있는데요. 보고 나면 너무나 만나고 싶은 분을 정말로 귀하게도 파이아키아에 모셨습니다. 하샘싱 감독님 나오셨습니다. 자, 여기 지금 이틀 전에 감독님이 처음 오셔서 한국에서 바쁜 일정을 보내고 계십니다. 일단 한국에 오신 소감이 어떠신지, 어떤 나날을 보내고 계신지를 질문드리겠습니다.
It's a very, and I very rarely use this word because I've been everywhere in the world, but it's very overwhelming for me. The main reason being that I keep saying I had this baby of mine and everybody just told me how ugly it was. And I come here and I find the women especially have embraced it so much in this country. So it's quite a strange, bizarre, overwhelming experience.
현장에서 직접 보시면 이제 한국 관객들이 면대면으로 이렇게 지휘도 하신 것으로 알고 있고요. 관객들을 직접 감독님의 영화를 사랑하는 사람들의 어떤 뜨거운 반응들 같은 걸 현장에서 직접 보셨을 텐데 그 경험이 어떠셨을까요?
The interviews? Pretty phenomenal because I speak very fast. If somebody asks me to speak slowly, I lose my chain of thought. This was the first time that I was speaking with a translator and I had to go slowly. So I hope they forgive me that usually I talk much faster and maybe I am more coherent. But breaking up, I forgot what I was saying a lot of times.
사실은 이 더 폴이라는 영화를 저는 2008년도에 극장에서 보는 순간부터 와, 영화가 너무나 환상적이라고 생각했고 또 이 영화에 관련된 여행을 다녀온 사람으로서 그 기억을 너무나 아름다운 기억으로 갖고 있습니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 이 영화가 사실은 2008년도에 한국을 비롯해서 개봉됐을 때에는 지금과 같은 이런 반응을 얻지는 못했는데요. 사실은 수많은 영화들이 개봉한 지 1년도 안 돼서 관객들의 기억에서 사라지는 경우들이 너무 많은 상황에서 이렇게 오래 시간을 견뎌내고 오히려 시간이 흐르면 흐를수록 한국에서 또 다른 나라에서도 점점 더 큰 반응을 일으켜서 정말로 이제 고전의 자리를 향해서 영화가 가는 게 아닌가라는 생각까지 들게 됩니다. 이런 환상적인 영화의 부활을 경험하고 계신데요. 감독님으로서는 어떠신지 궁금합니다.
I keep saying it is like having a child that everybody tells you is a special needs child and cannot crawl. And then you keep telling them, actually, it's okay. And then you look this way. When you look back, the child is running. So it took me 20 years. But when I made the movie, I was very aware that it is a polarizing film. And it has what I call, it's a predated, outside the box. Like, let's say, how Mamet writes his dialogue, how Kubrick films are made. That when you make them, they don't look contemporary. They look so old-fashioned. But 20 years later, you will see all the contemporary films of that time look old. Right. And the films that just had a singular voice, you will forgive them and just think, oh, it's an older film, and you get that license. So I think now people are giving me that license, and then they're watching it for what it is. So they're not judging that it looks old-fashioned, and that's given it a new life. And I'm glad for it. Or even Pasolini films. Because they were shot on real locations, when you saw them, if you ever saw them when they came out, they looked old-fashioned. But then you see them 30 years later, because they were shot on real locations, they don't feel old-fashioned. They just look like they have a time capsule. So I made that as a conscious effort, but I didn't think that it would be so alienating to people who saw it the first time when it came out.
네, 바로 그 점에서 이 영화가 굉장히 놀라운 지점이 있습니다. 좀 전에 파졸리니 감독의 이야기를 하시기도 하셨습니다만 감독님의 영화를 처음 본 사람들은 이 중에 많은 장면들을 그냥 어떤 그 포스트 프로덕션의 힘으로 그러니까 컴퓨터 그래픽 같은 것을 통해서 만들어내지 않았을까 싶은데 사실은 대부분 다 감독님께서는 실제 로케이션에서 찍었고 이 모든 것을 실제 재현하는 방식으로 영화를 찍으셨습니다. 당시로서도 굉장히 어려운 선택이었을 것 같은데 이런 방식을 과감하게 또 영화에서 실현하신 것에 대한 감독님의 생각을 듣고 싶습니다.
I was young and stupid, and I thought that I was making a film for a long time. I didn't see it as a contemporary film. And when I was making it, my whole thing was that when you do the most sophisticated effects or the most realistic style of the day, kind of like bell bottoms, after about 5-6 years, they look dated. So no matter how contemporary you make those decisions, they get outdated. But maybe 70-80 years later, they become retro and cool again, like stop motion. So for me, I was imagining this film, I wish I'd made it clearer, which was one of its failings, is that it is probably an old person remembering how they were told stories as a child. And I never made that clear. So for me, I just thought like if they would have known that that time there was no CGI, there was no nothing. So I said I will go to real locations and I will just take out the lampposts, like the Beiri with the steps and all. I will take out all those things, but I will not do any CGI just because I just thought it will not date. And I was afraid that no matter how, because it was all personally funded, that if I run out of money, I might start doing some cheap effects to finish it. So I just thought, no, the movie will finish when it will finish. 20 years, 8 years of ideas, 17 years of location scouting, and about 9 years of finding the child. But when I shot it, it took about 4 years of shooting. But I didn't know when the money will finish and how many countries. So I just thought, if I go to the real places, I know that there will be no compromise. There is no date. The movie can finish when it finishes. But that is also why I was okay with the stop motion sequence, because it looked so retro and looked so naive that I just said, this is okay. And that was the only thing that I told somebody else to make that I wanted to have no control on. All the technology I wanted to use was something that I could have done in 1920. So I couldn't use CGI. I could just make one post and make a painting of it on top, like where he does the swearing. So all that was, I know that in 1920, it would have been very easy for them. They would have just done tech, glass plate. So that's the only technology that I allowed myself.
감독님의 그런 예술가로서의 판단이 어떻게 보면 이제 세월을 앞서본 그런 선택이었다라는 생각이 들기도 하고요. 무엇보다 놀라운 것은 이 더폴이라는 영화가 사실은 비견되는 영화가 거의 없는 방식으로 독창적이다라는 부분입니다. 그런 점에서 사실은 이 영화랑 비슷한 방식으로 우리를 매혹시켰던 영화가 어떤 게 있을까라고 생각하면 별로 잘 떠오르지 않는다는 점에서 정말 놀라운 생각이 드는데요. 일단 감독님께 여쭤보고 싶은 것은 심지어는 조금 전에 말씀하신 것처럼 개인 재정까지 들여서 어떻게 보면 완전히 풍족하지 않은 환경 속에서 이 영화를 만드셨을 텐데 모든 영화들이 다 한계가 있기도 하고요. 그럼에도 불구하고 일단 사람들이 가장 놀라게 되는 것은 한 영화 속에 등장하는 저 많은 풍광들을 생각하게 되면 한 20여 개 정도의 나라들을 다니셨고 정말 본 적이 없거나 너무 유명하거나 이런 수많은 풍광들이 영화 속에 다 들어가 있다는 것이죠. 이런 것들을 다 일일이 다니면서 직접 찍어야겠다라고 생각하셨던 것, 그리고 이것이 시간적으로나 아니면 재정적으로 어떻게 가능했는지에 대한 이야기를 좀 여쭤봅니다.
I made a lot of money in advertising and I burnt it all on this film, and I would do it tomorrow again in a second if I had this kind of devil on my back. It was stopping me from breathing. It was stopping me from functioning. So my brother, who is a lawyer also, like the Godfather, he has only one client. It's me, and he takes care of my life. And he said that, we're just going to be two people with a lot of money who always talk about a movie that they never make. And I told him, no, when I find the child, we will make the movie. And when I found the child, two things happened simultaneously. A person who I was planning to spend the rest of my life with, the woman dropped me, and I found the child. And I told my brother, sell everything. We just finish the movie when we finish it. There is an expression that says originality is the art of concealing your source. I steal all the time. Maybe I steal from people that aren't known that well in the West, are not known there. And also, while working with somebody like Eisho Ikeyoko, you have to know that your source should not come from the same field. Like when Eiko would design clothes, she would never show you a painting of those clothes or a photograph of those clothes. She would show you a bug from a museum and say, I like the hair on this bug. And then she would show you something from a museum that was from Africa or something. You say, but I like the structure of this. It made no sense to me. But I trusted her and I said, does it make sense to you? She'd say yes. And I'd say, it's okay. So for me in this particular one, the places I got it from was all over. So I was looking for a film where I could have a blank canvas because none of the genres exist. That's why the film became period. It became 1920 because I thought if somebody has seen a movie and you tell them a cowboy movie, they know what it looks like. I wanted to make a contemporary film. It would have been more commercial. But I ended up making a film to make it 1920, not because of stuntmen that I loved from that time. It was more that I wanted a blank canvas so that if you tell somebody a cowboy story, they should imagine it not like a John Ford movie, not like Sergio Leone, just you don't know. It's like a person from America telling a story to a Romanian immigrant to something. So I just wanted that hodgepodge license. So it gave me the license and I looked for references that were not in cinema so much. So I ended up in many locations and ended up shooting a style that is not very emotional to people. But I was okay because I thought the hospital would be the emotional heart.
Oh.
And if you buy that part, then this can look like something else. And not to compare myself to Picasso, but all I can say is when people get a source from a different place, once you know where they got it from, it's what they do with the material that makes a difference. I mean, African art was naive and in that particular every way, and Europe looked down upon it. But here was a man that could draw like, Raphael when he was 12. And then he was bored with it. And he just went like, these people are collapsing time in their painting. They're looking at a person from the most dynamic angles. And he took it from Africa. And he made it what it is. But so you can't look down on that. He stole it from the Africans. I think the expression in India we have is he put old wine in a new bottle. That's equally valid. So he didn't reinvent anything, but just the audience who was seeing it for them it's brand new. And that's important.
네, 사실 이 영화를 제가 2008년도에 처음 보고 나서 너무 영화에 관해서 이제 신선하고도 깊은 감동을 받아서 이 영화에 무엇보다도 촬영지를 가보고 싶다는 생각을 했습니다. 그래서 이 영화의 촬영지들 다 갈 수는 없고 이 메인 촬영지라고 할 수 있는 인도를 제가 한 20여일 정도 이 영화에 등장했던 그 장소들을 다 일일이 한 20여 군데를 제가 다녔던 기억이 있거든요. 영화에 등장했던 뭐 찬드바오리라든지 잔타르만타르라든지 이런 곳들을 갔었던 기억들이 있고요. 그 당시에 여행이 사실은 저에게도 가장 그 행복했던 여행 중에 하나로 지금까지 남아있기도 합니다. 감독님은 그런 의미에서 여행 경험까지 저한테 주신 건데. Thank you. 제가 여쭤보고 싶은 것은 사실은 이 수많은 장소들이 있고 영화에서는 어떤 그런 환상성에서 이런 장소들이 주는 시각적인 매력이 너무나 엄청나게 강한데요. 어떤 기준으로 이런 장소들을 골랐는지, 예를 들어서 만리장성이나 에펠탑처럼 모든 사람이 아는 곳도 있지만 다윈의 그 친구의 월레스가 죽는 그 장면에서 그 원숭이가 죽는 장면에서 나왔던 찬드바오리처럼 이전엔 아무도 몰랐던 장소들까지도 어떻게 그것을 다 일일이 찾아내시고 로케이션을 헌팅을 하셔서 영화에 집어넣으시게 됐는지 그 과정이 너무 궁금합니다.
All these locations existed forever. But if you're anybody who is in film, the first thing you go when you go for film is you look on where you should park your trucks. Then they look where you can eat. And then they look for a location. So for me, I told them it's not going to be like this. I'm going to go to the most difficult places with small crew or crew that I will pay when I do commercials so that they are with me together. And the crew was on a communist rule, which means everybody got paid the same amount. The person who pulled the focus, the person who cleaned, Eiko Shioko, everybody got the same thing, every actor, with only one caveat, which was if we all go, we go economy, or we all go first class. So every place that we went to, you'll be surprised how people will die for you in front of a truck if they know that nobody is getting special treatment. So these places were very hard to shoot in, is the only reason nobody shoots there before. And also the season that I shot them is like the first day of shooting in India, the temperature was 48 degrees when it was raining. It was 100% humidity, you couldn't breathe. But the crew knew that when they finished, they can go to a room that has a swimming pool. Because at that particular time, India closed all the hotels because everybody told me you cannot film these locations because in this temperature, nobody can function. But all the hotels closed down. But the hotel rooms were like $3,500 US per night. But they closed. So they opened them for me for $90 per night. So everybody didn't complain because they had these rooms with swimming pools and everything. So these locations are very difficult and unaffordable in the wrong season. But I knew that my girl was going to grow very quickly. So I just said, no matter how difficult it is, we will go there. And when people say, why don't other people film there? I say, it's difficult. That's why they don't film there. We got stoned out of 3 places. We had to get in buses and go. We got shot at in 2 places. I went back 4 times. And I just didn't give up what I had to shoot. I just kept saying I will film less and less and less and make her talk more in the hospital if I have to. But I will not give up any of those locations. So none of those locations are new. There is nothing contemporary. Nobody shoots in Jantar Mantar. That thing is an astronomical site. But I looked at it and I just said, if I compose it like this, and then close off and don't show you the sky, it looks like a labyrinth. So I was just making the story up as we go along. That's also one of the reasons why most people get bored with it if they don't watch it like let's say in Korean cinemas, because your cinema is an incredible experience here. So if you watch it on a small phone or an iPhone or something like that, you will not get into what you think the film is about. You think it's about just eye candy. But after some time, you realize, oh, he has an agenda. So I wanted that license. So I knew that if that beginning part was not good looking, was not anything, it wouldn't work. So I had to go with spectacular locations that nobody had filmed in before. I had filmed in all of them. I was the first person to shoot Taj Mahal from behind because I thought it's impossible to get the license to shoot from front, but it's a symmetrical building. If you go from behind, you can film it from behind.
Easy,
So we went out there and all I did was clean up people. It's a very well-known building. So I went with all the cliches and all the kind of buildings that you would have never seen before. Only for that reason, because they're hard to film in. That's why nobody films there. It's like when the film crew films with me and I tell them, this is the hard job. If it was easy, they would all be brown. I would have just hired my family. So the same thing about the locations. I just go, they're difficult is why nobody films here. So you need somebody stupid with a lot of money. That was me. Now I'm just stupid with no money. But I have a baby that I love. Also, there are a lot of locations that are, they're like 300 years old. So when I was filming them in India, the Indian crew was going, you want to film this? It is so ugly. And I would just say yes to you. So, like a lot of times what you see as a child growing up, you don't find it romantic. You don't see the charm of it. Until I was 24 years old, I was in India. But when I went away, I came back and I had a romantic eye for India. If I was in India, I did not find those places beautiful. That's why in advertising, like they used to in the 70s when they used, like Ridley Scott and all those people, the English directors, to come and make commercials in America, because they will go to America and they'll go, oh my God, a palm tree, how romantic, and they want to film it. So they would look at America with a romantic eye, whereas the Americans go to England and they see cobbled streets and they go, oh my God, how romantic. So it's not, when it's not in your culture, you look at it romantically. I was just afraid that I might not find India romantic. But then after about 15 years of being outside, I did a commercial in India for Coke. And it's the only time I was scared of a commercial because I just thought I might not see India romantically. But it was very successful for Indians. So I realized that I don't belong anywhere. I look at everything romantically. So I was not afraid of using a location that people would tell me was cliche or would tell me it looks ugly. I would just say, no, it looks good to me.
확실한 것은 감독님께서 항공사 마일리지 엄청나게 쌓이셨겠다 이런 생각이 들고요. 당시 영화 찍으면서 얼마나 쌓이셨는지 궁금하네요.
Too much. In the year 2000, I gave my passport to somebody before I did my first film, The Cell. And I told him, I think I traveled a lot. And they checked, my PA checked my passport and he said, you traveled more than legally a pilot can fly. I had caught an average of 5 flights per week for 1 year. My father was in India and Iran and he worked in the airlines, that he used to have day shift, night shift. So it must be something genetic that I can fall asleep like this. If right now I know I have to work tomorrow, I will sleep here and I'll be okay in the morning. So for me, I could travel in Africa, travel anywhere. It's never bothered me. I love travel and I can sleep like this. So I do have a lot of miles. But in the beginning, it was cheap flying. That was difficult, but it never bothered me because I was young. I would just get on the plane, sleep, get up in the morning, and there would be a lot of spit here, and I would just do like this, get off and go to work. So it never bothered me. But it's good to have money and travel well. I prefer it, but we didn't.
구체적인 장면들을 좀 여쭤보고 싶습니다. 영화를 보다 보면 와, 저 장면을 찍으실 때 얼마나 행복하셨을까 혹은 힘드셨을까 생각하기도 하는데 일단 저걸 어떻게 찍었을까 싶은 장면부터 여쭤보고 싶습니다. 코끼리가 헤엄치는 장면이 극 중에서 초반에 굉장히 인상적으로 등장하는데요. 그 장면은 어떻게 찍으셨습니까?
Every scene in the film has a very big and long, complicated story. I love that in Korea, when I talk to the audience, everybody asks me about a different scene. When I did the elephant scene, about 20 years before that, I knew that most Indians also don't know that elephants can swim. The problem is that when the Andaman Islands where they swim, you can't make them swim. So usually people saw that in an island, because elephants can have babies only 10 years. So when a female is pregnant, the other elephants go crazy. So if they are like 80 miles away on an island, they would just swim and come. And then people said elephants can swim, but nobody had filmed them. So Jacques Cousteau did it in the 60s. It's used in many documents. So he did it. So I wrote one commercial idea, which became very big commercial, won a lot of awards, which was about an elephant that swims up to a woman and gives her peanuts and takes her Coca-Cola.
아,
So that became very famous, and I made that research thinking that I will do this. So when I was writing the stories, I was always making it like that you will go to a place and you will just say, okay, all the people are on an island. They need to go away from the island. I will use my elephant swimming. I will use this thing. So I was just making guidelines and connecting it like a child. I had already filmed that 25 years before. But when I went back, the elephants had gone somewhere else. So it was very difficult for me to bring the elephant back and film. There is a piece of footage that I cannot find anymore. I wish I could tell you, which is the biggest problem of filming with elephants. And that my editor and me cut to Tchaikovsky's cannons. And what it is the elephant, when they go inside the water, they eat a lot of food, the elephants, because they have a simple digestive system. But the amount of pressure from the water makes them do poo-poo all the time. So when I was filming from behind, these cannons would keep coming out. And the problem is if you leave them, then the visibility of the water goes bad. So I had to swim and put it on my chest and take it to put it out. So that was the only problem, that every 2 seconds you would go boom, and this big ball would come out. So we have a piece that I cut and I'm trying to find. It was just Tchaikovsky's cannons from 1812. It's just boom, 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 boom. And I wish I'd put that in the unfinished cut sometime, but I can't find the footage.
감독은 진짜 훌륭한 영화를 만들기 위해서 엄청나게 많은 일들을 해야 된다라는 생각이 일단 들고요.
Yes. You take a lot of shit.
첫 번째 장면에 관해서 좀 질문 드리고 싶습니다. 이 영화는 사실은 첫 번째 장면부터 관객을 강력하게 매혹시키면서 시작하는데 그 장면을 보면 사실 이제 사고가 난 장면인데 이 장면을 제가 알기로는 이제 남아프리카에서 찍으신 것으로 알고 있습니다. 그 장면을 찍으실 때 또 그 장면들이 주는 굉장한 압도하는 어떤 부분이 있고 또 실질적으로는 이제 모든 이야기의 시작인 어떤 사고 장면을 영화에서 이제 보여주시는 건데요. 이 장면을 찍으실 때 현장에서 어떠셨는지 또 관련된 어떤 또 감독님은 사실은 지금 찌를 때마다 너무 흥미로운 이야기들이 나와서 또 여기에 관해서 또 어떤 흥미로운 이야기를 해주실지 궁금하기도 합니다.
The reason the critics, a lot of us that time criticize me for it is that usually the story should be the best thing that you like. For me, I was quite different. I look for a beginning and an ending, and then I try to put a story in the middle. So for me, the first thing that came to me was to see that where Roy got hurt, I wanted to stylize that you didn't understand what was happening. You didn't see it was a stunt, it was anything but it's the aftermath of a stunt. So I had to stylize it to that particular point. So like I said, for 17 years when I was location scouting, I did a Reebok commercial. The client wanted people running away from water. And they wanted contemporary music. I told them, no, I want to play Beethoven. And I played Beethoven and I showed them completely slow as opposed to running fast. They wanted energy. I said, no, there's two ways to show that. One is you just slow people down, then you've never seen that so naturally, it'll abstract the issue. So that commercial was quite successful. And I knew that Beethoven will work for that piece. That was one of the first things I shot in the movie. So when we were shooting, we shot it in one day, that full sequence, except one shot, which is a close-up. When we were shooting it, it was cloudy. And I thought immediately that should I compromise today? And I just said, no, this is the movie I'm going to make. We shoot something else and I come back tomorrow, because I had shot it very quickly. Also, I was not sure if the idea worked, because I wanted the first scene to be what I called a controlled chaos. There was complete chaos, but I didn't want it to look hectic. So I just thought I will go what I did. So I will shoot it very slow. And then what happened is on the first day before we shot, the ADs, another person fell down and broke their arm. And it was correct, because everybody, instead of panicking and running, was speaking softly and trying to move efficiently. And I just thought, I'm right. That is the experience that happens after an experience. That you remember somebody shouting, you remember this thing, but it seems all slowed down. So I'd come up with that style 10 years before, and I'd done it to Beethoven already. So I knew it would work. So when I saw, I did not have the ending. This I'm talking about 28 years before I made the movie. And then when I saw Cinema Paradiso, I loved the kissing sequence in the end. And I just thought, that solves it. So I will make this girl become somebody that from the influence that she has, she loves stunts because she wants to think that he was successful. So her mother might have lied to her, or maybe that is the person who did the stunts. So she imagines him doing the stunts in the end, and I just thought it'll be like Cinema Paradiso, but it could be a lie. Because Buster Keaton did his own stunts, Charlie Chaplin, but she's thinking he did them. So she's grown up to be an old woman that hates art house cinema, but loves Michael Bay because she thinks he's doing the stunts.
오케이. 네, 사실은 이 영화를 보고 나와서 이제 긴 평을 쓰기도 하고 짧은 평을 쓰기도 했었는데요. 짤막하게 써야 되는 평에서는 제가 캔버스를 욕망하는 스크린, 그리고 붓을 동경하는 카메라, 이런 표현을 쓴 적이 있습니다. 그 표현을 쓴 것은 이제 영화를 보고 나서 그 표현이 가장 적당하다고 생각해서 제가 생각한 표현이기도 하지만, 더 정확하게는 영화에서 특정한 장면을 볼 때 그 생각이 들기도 했었는데요. 그게 바로 이제 색깔에 관한 부분에 대한 질문을 드리겠습니다. 영화에서 많은 분들이 너무나 인상적으로 생각하셔서 아마 지금 포스터로도 그 장면이 나와 있는 것 같은데, 동생인 밴디트가 죽었을 때 그것을 이제 그 시신이 흰 천에 이렇게 물드는 장면이 굉장히 환상적으로 펼쳐집니다. 그 장면에 관해서 현장에서는 어떠셨을까가 일단 첫 번째로 궁금하고요. 두 번째로 색깔과 관련된 또 다른 것은 이번엔 정반대로 파란색에 관한 질문인데요. 영화의 이제 후반부에서 굉장히 중요하게 찍은 실제 인도의 도시인 조드푸르에서 많은 장면들을 찍으셨는데, 이 도시는 이제 블루시티라는 별명으로 불릴 정도로 파란 색깔이 사람들의 이제 집에 칠해져 있는 그런 도시죠. 그럼에도 불구하고 제가 들었던 굉장히 흥미로운 이야기에 따르면 감독님이 이 장면에서 더 환상적인 효과를 주기 위해서 파란 페인트를 주민들에게 나누어 주고 무료로 나누어주고 벽을 칠하게 하셨다는 얘기를 제가 과거에 들은 적이 있습니다. 이게 과연 사실이었는지, 아니면 이런 관련된 이 푸른 도시에서 찍었던 경험은 또 어떠셨는지, 이런 이야기를 한꺼번에, 저도 지금 감독님께서 너무 청산유수로 이야기하셔서 저도 한꺼번에 두 질문을 드리게 됩니다.
I didn't really study any color theory as such. But I do know, I noticed something that if anybody done any film, when you go and color correct something inside a room, when you sit down, after some time, your eye normalizes no matter how colorful you make something. The only reason that your eye adjusts to something is variation. Like, I can give an example of something else, not got to do with color. Like most people think that pirates used to have a missing eye. They didn't. They wore that pitch because your eye takes time to adjust when you go from inside to outside. So the pirates used to attack a lot of times into a dark room while going on another ship. But when you went in those 2 seconds when your eye is adjusting, you get killed. So they used to have a patch that is already adjusted for inside. So they used to run in and shift it. And now you can see immediately, and they were ready. But in contemporary times, you've come to think that most of the eye, they were wearing this because they were missing an eye. Not true. So the eye is something that only understands contrast. So I kind of came to that conclusion from a story that I went to a tour in Morocco by a Muslim architect, a woman who was showing me around, and she showed me through this area that had, she said the tourist guide will just take you through 1, 2, 3, and then 5, but not to 4. Do you want to go like that? I said, no, how was it designed? She said, I'll take you the correct way. She took me to the first room, and it was fantastically colorful. The tiles. And I went to the next room, it was even more fantastically colorful. Third room, phenomenal, it was psychedelic. Fourth room was just white with little bit of this thing with more white, only white. And when I went to the fifth room, I thought I was doing drugs. It was so psychedelic. And I don't do drugs. But I went out there and it was even more psychedelic. I could not understand. And she said what happens is, she called that room, which I don't know in Korean, you've been able to find that word for it. She called it a sorbet. She said, your eye is getting so much, it needs to be cleaned. And then you go to the fifth room. So the next day I tried that same thing. And I went to 1, 2, 3 to 5. And it was not as dynamic. Because your eye is already used to that noise. So I wanted to dial that into the structure of this film. So I said the only way you will understand color is if I show you black and white sometimes, pure, or a boring hospital in which I can control the colors into brown, to have no red, no blue, and no green. So when you do that, because if you take out all these fantasy scenes, you might not find them as colorful. You need the sorbet, as that woman said, to clean your eye. So that was one thing. So to specifically go into the first one that you're talking about, the red one, you see the same scene with tea and white, and it's like brown. And then you cut to the most vibrant color, red, with his hand going and not swearing on his brother. So I was aware of those contrasts. If you were all the time in that scene, it wouldn't, your eye will just adjust to it and make it. So I was doing what pirates do. So I was doing that switcheroos in there. So in that particular scene when we made it, it is one of the most windiest corners in the Himalayas. So they told me you cannot build high because the wind will kill it. But it's called magnetic point or something. That's why nobody films there.
Ladakh?
Ladakh, yes. So I built a certain amount and I just said, this is the only one that I will do what they used to do photography in the 1920s, that you go back and you just make a copy of that higher and higher and higher like a photograph. Because I could not, if you built it that high, everybody would just die. It would become a parachute. So that is an effect. But the effect was that I wanted the top to be white so that you can feel the red. Otherwise, your eye will again adjust. So all those were tricks that I was aware of that we were doing. So like Ladakh is a high desert. So I do like deserts because they are just a canvas. You have to art direct what you need. When you go for architecture, you compose for the architecture. At least I did. So in this particular one, the high desert of Ladakh was great for me. The only problem that I had in that scene was because we had limited budget. So I knew that we wanted a body and the headless body that they gave me, every time I see it, it bothers me, but I'm glad that nobody has noticed it so far, that the brother is a Japanese dummy. Because we got it from the set of Last Samurai. So every time I see him swearing on his brother, I can see that his eyes are Chinese. Because my son is Chinese, half Chinese. So I just go like, oh, I wish I'd gotten a good dummy, but nobody has seen it so far, so I don't mind. It's some statue from Last Samurai. Sorry. Somebody whose head gets cut off. I've not seen the movie, but it's that. And so the blue city is something that people have taken photographs before. You can film in it. The problem is it is not that blue. It is certain extent they're blue, that's but right. Legally, because it's a Brahmin city, I knew that they could only paint their houses blue. So when I went out there the 3 months before we shot all the hospital, which I shot in sequence, when I was going to film there, I just told them that, when they told me they couldn't choose any other color, we just said, we made an announcement in the city that we will give them free paint. They can paint their house whatever color they want. But I knew they could only choose blue. So I got the best vibrant blue, almost what I call the Yves Saint Laurent blue. We got a lot of that and gave it to people because we would have never been able to afford to paint everybody's houses. There are hundreds out there. But people came and took the free paint and they said, oh, thank you so much. And I said, any color you want. But I knew they were only going to take blue. We had a little bit of red and a little bit of green and nobody took that. So they painted their houses and they did all the work for us. So that's why for most people, it is a blue city that they've seen, but never as blue as that film. So that was just another trick.
사실 감독님 말씀하시는 얘기를 들으니까 그냥 장면마다 그냥 하나씩 띄워놓고 다 일일이 물어봐도 이런 이야기들을 다 풍부하게 너무 재밌게 얘기해 주실 것 같아. 사실은 책 한 권도 충분히 이 백스토리로 만들 수 있지 않을까라는 생각이 들어서 너무 지금 흥미롭고 놀랍다는 생각이 일단 듭니다.
I think for the Korean audience, I will. In the future, because I'm shocked at how their questions and their approach has been different from everybody else in the world. It is a very unique vision that you have. So everybody, all the questions, I'm loving the Q&As here. So, I told my distributor that I would love to answer any Q&As that you have because I find that their perspective of questions is making me young again. I'm just waking up thinking like amazing.
네, 사실은 감독님한테 1시간을 저희가 이제 부탁을 해서 시간을 사실은 어느 정도 활용할 수 있지 않을까 싶었는데 지금 너무 흥미로운 얘기가 많아서 시간이 모자라다는 생각이 들어서 마음이 쫓기는데요. 감독님께 이제 그 이야기에 관한 이야기들도 한번 좀 질문을 드리고 싶습니다. 더4를 보고 나면 시각적인 부분에서는 정말 많은 거의 100%의 사람들이 다 엄청난 그런 쇼크를 받을 정도로 신선한 부분들에 대해서 많은 사람들이 찬양을 하는데 의외로 이야기에 관해서는 이야기하는 사람이 드문 것 같습니다. 그래서 거기에 관한 질문도 좀 드리고 싶습니다. 저는 더4를 사랑하는 이유 중에 하나가 이 탁월한 어떤 시각적인 독창성도 있겠습니다만 이야기에도 있다고 생각하는 쪽이고요. 거기에 관한 첫 번째 질문을 드리겠습니다. 이 영화에서 굉장히 흥미롭게 저한테 들리는 것은 사실은 영화의 시작에서는 로이가 특정한 목적을 위해서 약을 얻기 위해서 즉석에서 생각나는 대로 자신의 이야기를 소녀한테 해주는 방식으로 되어 있습니다. 근데 얘기가 뒤로 가면 갈수록 점점점 이야기 속에 듣고 있는 이 알렉산드라가 참여를 하게 되고 그러면서 둘 공통의 이야기가 되어가는 그런 구조를 갖고 있다는 점이 일단은 굉장히 신선해서 이런 어떤 이야기는 물론 이제 원작이었던 불가리아 영화에도 이런 플롯이 있었겠습니다만 거기에 관한 감독님의 생각, 이런 이야기를 바라보는 감독님의 전체적인 시선 이런 얘기를 좀 먼저 질문드리고 싶습니다.
I have not seen Yo-Ho-Ho from until when I saw it in college once. So I don't know how similar that is to this film at all. Because I refused to see it. I just liked the thing of it. Now, this was not when I started the film. I can tell you I was attracted to this particular subject matter, is that my friends who saw the movie after about 10 years ago started telling me, oh, this feels like you in school, what you were doing. And I realized that this idea was with me before I ever thought of making a movie. Because I was the only person in our whole class, because we were in a boarding school in the Himalayas, and when the snow used to come, we used to go to Iran. So for 3 months in Iran, I could see television in Farsi. So I did not understand any of the dialogue. Like I cannot understand when I'm thinking
Just
doing
like,
kabuki.
this time.
I could not understand any of the dialogue, but I was very influenced by visual filmmaking. So that's why to a certain extent, I feel like I'm much closer to silent cinema, which is not really something that the critics like to see when you have a talking film. So that probably influenced me a lot. And 2 things came out of that. One, silent cinema, I think, is the only cinema in which you can laugh and cry at the same time. You see Charlie Chaplin and you see the kid and you're laughing and you're crying, and he's walking like this, but you're still crying. So I think that was something that appealed to me a lot. So it influenced me in making the film. Second one is that I used to be a storyteller in the class, but our main teacher there was Mrs. Anand, and if any Indians see this, they can probably see if she's alive or dead, I don't know. But this was our teacher who used to tell us these stories, and what she would do is use our body language to tell you how much you can understand, how much you can understand, and how much you cannot. So she used to tell a story to, let's say, we are all about 8 years old. So she's got a class of boys, and she would mix up really crazy fantasies. Now we think, that time we didn't think they were crazy, with how much she thought we could understand. The stories were like Daku Man Singh, who's like an Indian bandit, Indian Robin Hood, with James Bond, were together solving the Watergate scandal. So this was 1972. We had read in the paper about Watergate scandal in America, but we were thinking, is she lying? Is she telling the truth? We could never make out. So that influenced us so much, and she could use our body language to tell if she was telling a story that was way above us or not, which doesn't happen in cinema. But it happens if you're telling a story to a child. If they get bored, they'll just fall asleep. Or if they have any power, they will tell you where the story should go. So I just thought if we put a child in a power position, like a studio executive, because when you're pitching to the executive, their body language very much dictates the story that you will tell. Just like a musician plays to 10 people or 10,000 people, you use that energy to tell the story. So then in the end, it becomes, whose story is it? But with cinema, or even with written storytelling, that changed, because you see it and you have to come to terms with it. But when you're telling the story viscerally, the person, if they fall asleep, you go like, missed it. Or if it's a studio executive and they're taking telephone calls in between or looking at text messages, then you pick up the pace. You introduce this crazy woman with a Uzi that shoots everybody, and then but they're sitting forward and listening to the story, then you start milking the scenes. So I just thought that's what I wanted to do, but with a child. So I remembered this film that I had seen, Yo-Ho-Ho. I bought the rights to it. I've never seen the movie again, so I'd love for somebody to tell me how much is there and how much is not. But if I do remember, it was a boy.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't even know, I don't think the guy is a stuntman or anything. I don't remember any of this. But the only reason I made him a stuntman is because I wanted the story to be before there was cinema. So for me, I was interested in, if you're using the other person's body language to tell the story, whose story is it? And Mrs. Anand, I didn't even think of her, but all my school friends, when they saw the film 10 years later, were telling me, oh, this is like Mrs. Anand's story. And it doesn't work when you're grown up, only as a child. I said, yes, but this is the child's perspective. And that's the movie I ended up making.
네.
요즘 넷플릭스 어디서 봄?
BTV에서 봄. 더 알뜰하게 보니까 BTV.
다음 질문은 그렇습니다. 그런 이야기랑 관련해서 감독이 지금 흥미로운 이야기를 해주셨는데요. 그러니까 제가 드리고 싶은 것은, 이 이야기가 처음에는 로이의 입장에서 그냥 자기가 어떤 특정한 목적을 위해서 되는 대로 이렇게 만들어내는 이야기였습니다. 근데 이야기를 하는 과정 속에서 반응을 하고 있는 이야기를 듣고 있는 알렉산드라는 소녀의 이야기를 보면서 오히려 뒤로 가면 갈수록 소녀로부터 어떤 삶이나 혹은 이야기를 하는 스토리텔링에 대해서 배우고 있다라는 과정이 굉장히 흥미롭게 느껴졌습니다. 아까 감독님께서 흥미로운 이야기를 하셨던 것이 이제 모든 그 스태프들이 똑같이 평등하게 비행기를 타고 다니고 임금을 받고 했던 이야기를 하셨는데 로이가 처음에 알렉산드리아한테 이야기를 했던 것은 알렉산더에 관한 이야기였습니다. 그 이야기에서 물이 분명히 한 통이 있음에도 불구하고 그것을 그냥 버리는 그 알렉산더의 행동을 보여주게 되는데 거기에 대해서 알렉산더는 어차피 이 물로 모든 사람이 해결할 수 없기 때문에 그냥 여기서 아무도 못 마시게 물을 버린다라고 했을 때 알렉산드리아는 모자라더라도 조금씩 다들 마실 수 있지 않느냐라는 말을 해서 그 얘기를 듣고 있는 로이가 굉장히 뒤통수를 맞은 것 같은 그런 표정을 짓게 됩니다. 제가 이 이야기를 드리는 이유는 그러니까 애초에 모두가 마실 수 없다면 그 물은 아무도 안 마시는 게 낫다라고 생각했던 사람, 다시 말해서 자기 삶에서 그녀를 얻을 수 없다면 이 시련을 당한 고통 속에서 나는 죽는 게 낫다라고 생각한 사람이 이 알렉산드의 이야기를 듣고 서로 말을 섞어가는 과정 속에서 삶에 대해서 다른 태도를 갖는 것, 그러니까 모자라더라도 물을 나눠 마실 수 있다는 것, 혹은 고통이 있더라도 삶을 살아갈 만한 충분한 가치가 있다는 것을 오히려 아이를 통해서 배운다는 거죠. 이런 과정들이 사실은 이 영화가 단순히 시각적인 뿐만 아니라 이야기에서도 관객을 굉장히 감동시키는 그런 부분이 아닐까라는 생각이 듭니다.
The original intention was that he's telling her a story that is a complete bomb. It completely, like he's telling her a story that has such a high moral. For a child, it makes no sense.
That's right.
So when he's telling her that he's lost in the middle of a desert with a few men, he's probably thinking 10,000. But when you tell a child few men, she thinks 5. So when he says, doesn't have a horse, I just went with all of that. But then he has a moral, like, and then the so-and-so king did this thing. But for the child, it's like, no, that's stupid. And then she tells him that. But I love that what you're coming up with, I like more. That when she gives him a reason, he kind of ends up compromising and coming to her thing. Yeah, maybe give everybody water. But this was something, a painting that I had seen in Iran in National Geographic. You can probably find it, which is of Alexander the Great in a desert with a helmet throwing water down. And all this, the people standing behind him. But you tell that to a child, it's taking too high a moral ground. So it's like telling a R-rated film to a 5-year-old. It doesn't make sense. So for me, she just thinks it doesn't work. And then he thinks, I need to think. This is not a human being. This is just a child. I will make a stupid story for you. And then he starts with the most basic story that he can. But it's her interpretation. And then, of course, she inserts herself into the story. And it becomes something else. But that line about you should have given everybody, it's her. Because I shot the movie in sequence. The first day she saw him is the first day she met him. Second day she saw him because everybody in the studio thought that she couldn't walk. I had told everybody. Nobody knew that Roy could walk. We had taken him from, he had only done one film before and he had played a woman. So I had taken him to make him specifically for the cameraman. Nobody knew that he could walk. But I didn't realize that for children, handicaps are scary. So the first scene, she wouldn't come near him. She would just stay outside the door. And then I just said, okay, I can do the projection there. I can do this. And I had to change it. And after like 2 days, she was in the bed with him. And then she just wanted to kiss him. She just wanted to hug him. And I had to keep pulling her away. So by the end, she had become that person. But I let her improvise in any form that she wanted because I would explain it to her. The only thing was her English wasn't very good, which is one of the reasons I took her. But after about 10 days, she started speaking English with an Indian accent because I was the only one speaking in English to her. So then I had the Romanian father who would sit there and I would talk to him and I would say, you tell her. And then he would tell her. So there was already this Chinese whisper, but there was a complete misunderstanding. So when she would hear a story, she would just go like, that's stupid. He would have given her a little bit water. So I just said, it's okay. Just explain to her what we think we're doing and she will tell us what to do. So we had that already sewn in, that Roy can't walk, she can't do this thing. She thought she was in some form of a documentary where she could do whatever she wanted and we were going to ask her questions and then I was going to find the structure in the film.
Yeah. 그럼 감독님께 이제 마지막 질문을 드리기로 하겠습니다. 좀 너무 안타까운데요. 제가 드리고 싶은 질문은 이 영화가 어떻게 생각하면 관객에게 바칠 수 있는 최상의 찬사나 러브레터 같은 작품이 아닐까라는 생각을 사실은 하게 됐습니다. 무슨 이야기인가 하면 영화는 애초에 촬영 현장에서 실패한 사고로 시작을 합니다. 그리고 영화의 마지막이 되면 이제 영사를 하는 방식으로 이제 그 장면들을 보여주고 있고요. 또 영화의 맨 끝은 아까 말씀하셨던 그 시네마 천국에서 등장하는 것 같은 수많은 추락 장면들을 보여주면서 영화가 사실상 끝난다고 할 수가 있겠죠. 감독님께 여쭤보고 싶은 것은 극 중에서 사실은 우리가 보고 있는 오디오스와 관련되어 있는 그 이야기 속의 장면들을 시각적으로 현란하게 보여주신 그 모든 장면이 사실은 로이가 상상하는 장면이 아니라 알렉산드라가 상상하는 장면이다라는 것이 굉장히 중요하게 저한테 느껴집니다. 그러니까 로이의 이야기를 들으면서 이 꼬마 입장에서는 자기 주변에서 보는 사람들이나 단계들을 섞어서 자기 머릿속에서 시각적으로 상상한 것을 관객이 보고 있다는 것인데요. 그렇게 본다면 이 영화에 관해서 로이와 이 소녀가 함께 만들어가는 이 이야기의 귀결이라는 것은 어떻게 보면 창작자와 향유자인 관객이 함께 만들어가는 그 이야기의 끝을 보여주는 것 같거든요. 다시 말하면 이 영화 속에서 만약에 알렉산드라의 위치를 만약에 관객의 위치에 놓고 본다면 어떻게 보면 창작자는 그냥 내가 만든 상태에서 관객은 그냥 보기만 하는 존재지라고 시작을 했다가 영화의 마지막에 이르면 결과적으로는 자신이 만드는 창작자임에도 불구하고 함께 만들어가는 것은 바로 관객이다라는 것을 인정하는 이야기처럼 보인다는 거예요. 그런 측면에서 이 영화가 주는 일종의 메타 영화로서의 속성도 굉장히 강력하게 우리를 사로잡는 이야기의 매력이 아닐까라는 생각이 드는데 감독님은 이렇게 이 영화를 만드시면서 영화에 관한 영화다라는 생각을 하시면서 어떤 생각의 의도로서 이런 것들을 만드셨는지를 마지막 질문으로 드리게 됩니다.
That is very true. But that's why I say Mrs. Anand's thing worked. Because she used our body language to tell us a story. So in this particular world, Alexandria inserts herself into this. And I tried one thing which is the film is unsuccessful in. I tried, but it looked horrible to me. And the idea was that I wanted it to be clear. And then I saw Titanic and I just said, I can't do it. Because it worked in Titanic. It's the idea, I wanted it to be about nostalgia. I wanted the voice to be of an old woman telling you what she thinks a guy told her a story is about. But when I started in the beginning with an old woman's voice over the black and white, it didn't work for me. And I was never successful in really addressing that. So in certain cultures that works very well, because a lot of the words that Lee Pace taught me is that when they're speaking, I don't know what they do in the subtitle in Korean, if it works or no, because he uses words that when she says Indian, he is specifically saying Red Indian because he's worked with a Red Indian, but she remembers Indian from India. So she doesn't understand the word, but she just keeps imagining him like an Indian from India because she works in the orange fields and there is an Indian there and he has a turban. So she just makes him that. So for the Americans, that works, that they understand, oh, it's a child's perspective. In a lot of places, people don't understand that, oh, she's completely imagining everything wrong. So all the signals are there that she's misinterpreting them. And I left it like that. I wish I had been able to articulate that this is probably an old woman remembering how she was told stories. I couldn't do it. So I just said, it's okay. Just imagine the child's imagination. And the story is from her perspective. So to certain people in different cultures, it becomes clear. And to a lot of cultures, it doesn't because the words, I don't know how they translate them.
We can understand that.
Oh, good. So then they use that. That's wonderful. I am shocked. I think the movie should be shown to everybody in the world in a Korean cinema with Korean subtitles. Because when I saw it, first, I love the quality of your cinemas out here. Something in English, I don't know if you saw it originally in English, something that I loved about it is the big problem for a lot of English-speaking people, which is that the producers will always tell you that if you do a voice, especially in today's cinema, they say make it clear what they're saying or take it out. And I just said, no, if you remember 70s cinema, half the time you couldn't understand. From the context, you got it. But as a general audience, people like to be knowing clearly what a person speaks. And Katinka's accent and half her words, because her English is not good, she mumbles them and eats them. So for me, a lot of people who see it subtitled, it works quite well because they just probably break up and change what she's saying, but it's still clear. But to a lot of the American audience, they go like, I can't understand the child at all. So a lot of people embrace it and say, she's just like my niece. I have to understand from the context what she's saying. So and some people will just say, oh, it's horrible. Like I didn't understand a thing. So for me, I think everybody just should see it with Korean subtitles. So after all that, I made this movie for me to start breathing again. And now I realize I probably made it just for Korean women. Because that turns out is 87% of my audience. So I just go like, oh, okay, I've been corrected.
네. 사실은 저도 여기서 파이아키아에서도 많은 인터뷰를 했었는데 지금처럼 당황스러운 경우가 굉장히 드뭅니다. 왜냐하면 시간을 좀
I'm
맞출
going to
수가
say
없고요.
just like you.
I am you.
You.
네, 너무나 유쾌한 시간이고 또 너무 사실은 감독님이 아마 선생님이셔도 이야기를 굉장히 잘해 주실 것 같다는 생각까지 하게 됐는데요. 다음에 한번 또 내한을 하시면 그때는 진짜 한 4시간 정도 잡고 제대로 말씀을 나누고 싶다는 생각을 들게 됩니다. 자, 감독님 오늘 어떠셨는지 마지막으로 또 소감 말씀해 주시고요. 또 인사해 주시면서 이 이야기를 이 귀한 자리를 마치도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you. By the way, I'm really sorry that it took so long to give the answers. The only person that this has ever happened with me was when I went to see Roger Ebert. And when I went, unfortunately, he was a great film critic that used to run the Toronto Festival. I took it to Toronto because he was one of the only film critics that supported The Cell, which a lot of critics hated. So I took it there, but that year he got a cancer. So all the other reporters killed the film. And 2 years later, when nobody wanted it, I went back. Because Ebert saw it and wanted to meet me. And when I went there, it was one of the most surreal experiences for me because he had a cancer and he had an electronic voice. And I told him that, nobody wants the film, I'm doing this. And I just said, I'm so glad that you like my movie. And I love what he said, but it was with an electronic computer voice. He said, not like, love. And first, it didn't even sound like an emotional voice, but coming from a person that I adored, but hear it electronically, and he's talking about love and not like. So it was a very strange, bizarre meeting for me. I will bring Katinka with me. I'm thinking with them, or I will see if Lee Pace is free. I would love to bring him also to see, because he's come to China a few times to do films, and I stay in touch with them. So if I figure out next time when there's the time, I would love my family to come, because everywhere we went, I have to tell you, when we had the premiere of the film in Toronto, when we got out, there was only one friend of mine who was outside to greet us to take one picture when we got out. And we thought, yes, people are going to, and then nobody saw it. So suddenly I see it in Korea, and I see the love of it, and I go like, oh my God, I was right, I just forgotten everything about it. So for me, I would love for my family, for my son and everything, to come to Korea and see basically how it plays.
네.
So I have no idea. I thought I made something that would work for an audience and probably last for a long time. But it didn't work at all for a contemporary audience. They saw it, and very few people saw it for what it was. And people are like, naive, the story is so stupid, it's not mystical enough. It's like, I'm thinking like, oh, I know it's me. And, it's a very strange word that critics love when they say an auteur. And for me, they always get angry because, Spike Jonze and Fincher and everybody who presented the film eventually are very good friends of mine. And Michael Bay is a classmate. And I always tell people that Michael Bay is as much as an auteur as them. Because Michael Bay, when he was in school, he loved exactly what he's making. It's just might not be something that critics like. Auteur just means author. Can you see the author? You see a frame of his and you go like, I know who that is. You see any Michael Bay film and you say in one frame, that's Michael Bay. So he's not a critic's darling. So I just wasn't ready for that. That when it happened, it just because it was the kind of film that it's not got a studio backing. So it needed the love of somebody to come in early. And the critics, I think they have to be above like 85% or something. And for me, I've never made a movie that was above 50%. And for me, I'm really quite terrified of something like tomato meters, because if you make a film that is 6 out of 10, and is not offensive, it is 100% in tomato meter. So if you look at the tomato meter, the greatest film probably ever will be Shawshank Redemption. Because it's a good film, but it is not offensive at all. So for me, on things like when I saw like Jonathan Glazier's films, I love, if you see Birth, I love that film. It's at 50%. So I was always happy that The Fall is at 50% because it's polarizing. Now I'm scared because the numbers are coming up and it's becoming like, it's recommended. So I don't know what to think of it, because last year when I went to Toronto, this is the only film that I've made that critics have liked. And the same thing has happened. Not a single person wants to buy it. It's been 2 years, so I ended up doing the same thing with The Fall. So I hope it doesn't take 20 years before you see that film, because The Fall was the only personal film I made. And Dear Jussie is the next one. But it's quite heartbreaking and polarizing. So maybe in 20 years I'll come back with that film, and the Korean women might like that. I don't know.
네.
Gomsamnita. That's the only Korean I know. I'm really sorry.
네. 자, 이렇게 해서 긴 시간 동안 시간을 내주시고 또 너무 좋은 말씀해 주셔서 감사합니다. 다음에 또 말씀하신 대로 언젠가 또 감독님을 한번 모시는 자리가 있으면 좋겠습니다. 감사드리고요. 마치도록 하겠습니다. 고맙습니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Thank you.
네, 이렇게 오늘 타스앤싱 감독님과 함께 더폴에 관한 정말 많은 이야기를 나눴는데요. 최고작은 더폴이라고 할 수 있겠지만 정말로 많은 사람들이 또 인상적으로 기억하는 영화가 한 편 더 있습니다. 데뷔작이기도 했던 더셀이라는 작품인데요. BTV에서 보실 수 있습니다.